Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joe Sked, and once again I am joined by Craig Cairns. How's it going, Craig?
Good Joe, good Joe. I was enjoying the respite from Hearts, and then I decided to watch the Scotland game. So yeah.
Yes, it was. There was parallels to it. A team that doesn't really create many chances, but actually, I thought Scotland were decent in areas. They played some decent stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot to. It's a really poor run they're on, so it doesn't help with that. But in terms of if you're comparing it to the other performances this year, yes, there were a lot of positives there. There were changes, so there's going to be some bedding in and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very disappointing evening, but at least you can look at it and say there were just horrendous errors that lost us the game. And overall, we kind of performed pretty well. I think from a Hearts perspective, the disappointing thing will be that Shankland came on, and while he got involved a little bit, I think he was maybe the poorest out of the subs that came on. Just didn't really get involved in the game. And some of that was his positioning. The other guys that come on behind him are naturally going to get involved in the game see a bit more of the ball. But yeah, it just kind of seemed like a wee bit of a follow-on from his Hearts form, which was a wee bit disappointing.
Yeah, that was. I thought I thought once the subs were made and Shankland was on, Scotland looked more lively. But again,
yes,
some similar issues is it doesn't get many chances.
If Robertson had found him with that cross, though, I mean, that was one of the themes of the night. Robertson was getting into good areas, but his crossing wasn't very good. And there was one where Shankland had kind of found half a yard of space, and who knows if it would have been offside or whatever. But the ball didn't reach him in the end. So I. Starved of service for Scotland as well as Hearts.
Similar story. But yeah, like you said, it's international break, so we don't have to watch Hearts this weekend. However you look at it, whether you see that as a positive or negative, but there is football, Hearts-related football on this weekend or this evening. Hearts women are playing Hibs women in the Edinburgh Derby Easter Road tonight. Tickets are free. Game kicks off at 7:35. I think it'll be an interesting match because of both teams seem to be more competitive in terms of getting closer to the top three in Scotland. I'm not a women's football expert, but having spoken and listened to people, that's kind of expectation. And then you've got the Hearts B team, which who are playing at home this evening as well. They have been, anytime I've gone down to watch them, they've been fun. So there's at least two interesting matches that Hearts fans can get involved in if they are missing the football action and players playing in maroon. We are, though, here to chat about a few things that have happened this week. We will get on to talk about Musa Drammeh later on, but we'll first start by talking about Graeme Jones, who was appointed as the sporting director. It was confirmed that he would become the new sporting director, replacing Joe Savage after Savage left in the summer after 3.5 years at Tynecastle. They've taken their time. I'm just getting up the statement now. They've taken time to make an appointment. Andrew McKinley says, "I'm extremely pleased that Graeme has agreed to join us as our new sporting director. The role is a pivotal one within the football club, and as such, it was crucial that our recruitment process was thorough, not rushed, and focused on finding the right individual." Now, Craig, you have been doing a wee bit of looking into Graeme Jones. I've done a wee bit myself. What do you make of the appointment?
Well, I would say first off that I'm definitely no expert when it comes to these kind of appointments. I think you can look at player signings and managerial appointments, and you can through the knowledge that you've built up or the research that you do, you can weigh up the positives and negatives of it all and that kind of thing. I think this is a little bit more difficult to sort of judge, and partly because these roles are so flexible is not the right word, but they can be defined in a number of different ways. Different clubs, different people. He's going to have you say that he's replacing Joe Savage, but he's going to have a slightly different role. I mean, I think is the title not slightly different? Anyway, I think the role is going to be slightly different. It can vary from club to club, but looking at the individual, I mean, he seems to be well thought of at the SFA. He's been there for 9 years. He's been promoted a couple of times. He's been part of successful camps. I know that he can also, one of the most famous or infamous moments of his career so far was the Kazakhstan debacle, but I very much think that seems to be a bit of an outlier with the rest of his career, really.
Yeah.
And he seems to since then have taken all that like on the chin, and he's a bit self-deprecating about it and all. If people can't remember, it was the time zone thing when he was interviewed. It was put on Twitter, and he was talking about how he had implemented some sort of way of kind of cheating the time zones, like staying on UK time, and he kind of worked out this formula for every time you crossed a time zone, blah, blah, blah. And it backfired because we lost 3-0 to Kazakhstan. We were 1-0 down within like 5 minutes or something like that. And Alex McLeish ended up losing his job off the back of it. So he came in for a lot of criticism off the back of that. I would think that's a bit unfair, to be honest.
It's a guy that's not really, I don't think he was overly experienced, and I think it was maybe potentially one of the first media that media
exactly.
he did in front of the camera. So having been in the camera myself, sometimes you say, or you can look daft. It's one of these things. I've done it much more than Graeme Jones in terms of saying something stupid or looking daft. So I can empathise.
But he certainly has a good CV, and while he was at Scotland, I don't think in the head of performance role, but the role he had before that, I can't remember all the job titles, but he's been there for 9 years. He had one job for 2 years, head of sports and medicine, then in another job, which was head of performance or something like that, for 6 years. And then in December, he was appointed to overseeing performance director, I think it was.
Performance director, yeah.
And in that second role, he brought in things like a scheduling app, which he was really and he modernized. He brought in a lot of modern methods that weren't really being used at the time. So yeah, he's kind of been on the cusp of a lot of kind of modern methods. He introduced a lot of things that Scotland weren't doing before, and ultimately he was part of 2 successful Scotland campaigns that qualified us for tournaments after a long wait. So yeah, from what I can gather, it seems like a good appointment. But I have to stress that I don't have a lot of experience of judging sporting director appointments.
I think there was kind of discussions that maybe he would come in, and so they'd maybe kind of split roles or have a different different term for his role, but it's as a sporting director, it's the same job title as Joe Savage. And going by the statement on the website says, as sporting director, Graeme will oversee all aspects of the club's football department, leading on performance, recruitment, academy, and supporting both men's and women's teams' football footballing matters. So I think probably the most interesting aspect for it for me is going from the national team to a club, to a club environment, and the change that he'll encounter there. Obviously, recruitment is different club-wise than it is in the national team, but there is stuff like talent identification that he has to go through in the Scotland national team. Obviously, looking at players as well who maybe qualify for Scotland, maybe weren't born in Scotland. So there's that aspect to it as well. He is a Hearts fan. I mean, that counts for doesn't count for loads, but I think people do like having Hearts fans involved in the club and having that kind of degree of connection there. So that's I suppose you can look on that side of it being as positive. But the sport director one it's something that I remember when I sat down with Joe Savage last year, and it's a role which I think does get it does get a wee bit confused. I think people see a sporting director direct football and think, right, they're just fully in charge of recruitment. Whereas I think it's much more for kind of management role, where you're overseeing so many different aspects of the club. You are more than anything kind of a problem solver of these different elements of how a club operates every day. For example, like Joe Savage, he wasn't a lot of like the recruitment issues or complaints. There was a lot of like almost as if people thought he went out and scouted the players and went out and signed the players, but it's people that work underneath him who are like the head of recruitment, Will Lansfield, and the analysts and the scouts. They are sourcing the players. Sporting director job is to come in towards the end and to kind of get deals over the line, or kind of just to facilitate and oversee everything, make sure everything's working. So that is something that Graeme Jones has a lot of experience at Scotland. That's what he was doing in his most recent role. Was he had an oversight of so many different aspects of the Scotland national team, both men's and women's. So he's obviously in charge of a lot at Scotland. So it's good that he's had that experience coming into Hearts, where again there's a lot to oversee, but it's about managing people, and I think that's a big part of the job.
I think sometimes as well, it's just to take the burden off the manager for certain things. I know working closely with Wraith that when John Potter came in as technical director, they didn't have a role before, an equivalent role before. And Ian Murray actually welcomed that, because that then meant that he didn't have to deal with contacting players and trying to convince them to come to the club, or contract negotiations. All these kind of things were kind of taken out of his hand, and that meant he could be like a training pitch manager. So sometimes there's a lot of complex things going on behind the scenes. So sometimes it is to relieve the burden off other people there. And just to add to what you're saying, it's a team effort. These things are a team effort. Recruitment's always a team effort. It's never just one person says, I want that, and then they go out and sign that player. It's at many clubs now, it is a collective decision. And like you say, Savage would have been part of the team that made the decision. And one of the reasons he got the praise and the flack for the signings that went well and the ones that didn't go well is because he was ultimately responsible for it all. It wasn't that he had made the signings per se. It was the buck stops with him ultimately.
Yeah. And when Scott Savage came in, his background was in recruitment. That's what he was did that with like Norwich and Preston and Hamilton. Whereas Jones' background, it's in the sports science side of things. So, but it's one of those, as the more experience he's got this Scotland national team, he has done different roles and experienced different elements of it. Yeah, the recruitment's probably the one thing that you can't compare club to national team, so that'll be an interesting aspect of it. But also, you have to look in that he's also got an existing relationship with Naismith, because they would have came into contact when Naismith was a player and when Naismith was a coach with Steve Clarke as well. So, it's one of those where I know we've spoken about it for 10 minutes, and I understand the importance of these roles within football, like you said, with Race Rovers, and not having that, and it takes the burden off the manager. Robbie Nielsen's spoken about it before, Naismith has spoken about that before, but at the same time, it's very much 2024 football, where there's so much focus on someone who isn't picking the players and isn't playing, but it's just this kind of management role as well. So it's just how football's changed.
Yeah, and it's if you go back a certain amount of time, then it would have been people with no. I'm speaking in very sort of general terms here, but it would have been people with no background in football really, or sports science or medicine or anything like that. Taken, you wouldn't have a sporting director; you would just have directors, and they, you know what I mean. So it would. You would have them dictating to, or trying to dictate to football people. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm trying to say all this without saying in the modern game, but in the modern game, they're kind of essential now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting, some of the comments that Steve Clarke made in the build-up to the Poland game. He was asked about him. He talked about how he's going to be a really big miss he's going to be because he was an integral part of the Scotland national team. I think a lot of the good relationship with a lot of the players. Players liked working with him, and he did say that he's going to be part of the Scotland camp for the next Scotland national team for the next two camps. So it's very likely. There's no starting date being confirmed. Certainly the last time I checked with the club, but it does seem like he won't be in the door until properly until at least November, if he stays with Scotland, obviously, for the next 2 camps beyond this one. We'll move on to discuss the Conference League squad that was announced yesterday. Yesterday morning, it was confirmed on the FIFA website, and Hearts, as expected, chose 22 first-team players. They were kind of penalised 3 players just because of the conditions that UEFA set on the squads. You have to have at least over the age of 21 4 club-trained players. Only one fits that bill, and that's Craig Gordon. So then you had a list of 20 players in the B list, which because you're allowed to, I think, name unlimited number of players under the age of 21. So that includes Macaulay Tate, Bobby McCluskey, Calem Sandilands, James Wilson, Finlay Pollock. So they're in that list. And then the 22 first-team players are as expected, with the exception of Ryan Fulton. Third choice goalkeeper wasn't selected. It allowed Naismith to pick one more outfield player. Calem Nieuwenhof wasn't selected, obviously still having issues with his hamstring. And then Musa Drammeh wasn't selected either. What were your thoughts on the players missing out? Because obviously they were the only, that was like the only real news aspect of it. The fact that Fulton and Musa and Calem Nieuwenhof missed out.
Well, Musa, we're going to come on to later.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably just get you to speak about him, because I don't know much about him at all. But I'm not surprised. The Nieuwenhof one, I can understand that as well. Benny's further ahead than him, and Nieuwenhof is not fit yet. And Fulton, I suppose it does. In one sense, it doesn't really matter. In another sense, it's just the thing that's the most annoying, is that the right word, about this squad, is the fact that our only homegrown senior player is Craig Gordon.
41-year-old goalkeeper, yeah.
It's not exactly, it's like it's weird that he's even classed as that. So it's a problem that goes well beyond Naismith and Naismith's time. But they're being our third choice goalkeeper missing out because we basically haven't produced any youth players of note over the last few years, and the fact that we name fewer players and then we just have a pool of B team players that are available. I think that's quite damning on the club as a whole. Again, I'm not like trying to say that that's necessarily to do with Naismith. Maybe he has taken steps, and it's not an instant thing. So maybe he has taken steps. It means more younger players will make appearances in the next wee while. But yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I think the squad's about as expected, but the fact that we struggled to have senior homegrown players is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, so that is. I think there's obviously a willingness and push from the club to, as all clubs, to make more use of the academy, and it's a really important tenet of the squad building Naismith was talking about before, is to have a continuity within the squad, and then it allows you from transfer window to bring in players from outside of Scotland to come in, and then you are also bringing through youngsters who can be part of the squad. And look at two ways that you're wanting to produce young players who then you can sell for money, because that I think that's a good production line. But then there's also the guys you want to produce, the guys who maybe aren't going to make big moves, but provide that continuity and are around the club and get the club. So I think there's two types of young players that Hearts need to start producing, and hopefully with the players in the B team, in the academy, there's certainly a handful who have that potential to come through and do exactly that. We've seen Pollock, we've seen Tate, we've seen James Wilson. Calem Sandilands is highly rated, and Alfie Osborne, 16-year-old, he was on with the squad down in Fleetwood. So there's a lot of guys that the club do like. But yeah, that was kind of that hammers home the point of the importance of bringing through and making sure the academy is robust and bringing through these talented players. So when this happens in the future, you're protected against having to like drop players or not be able to select players because you're being penalised. The other side of it, the only other aspect of it was just Calem Nieuwenhof, and suggests that he is not going to be fully fit by the time that Dino Moments comes around. Someone asked me on Twitter yesterday, does that mean that he won't be involved until January? No, I mean he can't be involved in Europe until February if we keep progressing. That's when he can start making changes to the squad. But I don't think it means that he's going to be out until January. I just think it means it's an injury that's taken longer than expected to heal. And that brings us on to Musa Drammeh. I think that was one that when I put out the squad yesterday on social media, I think that got the most amount of interest and sparked the most amount of discussion amongst fans, and the frustration that we've not seen Musa this season in the competitive game, especially with the attacking struggles the team have had and maybe the lack of pace in the final third. He has he's followed up by not being included in the squad by scoring twice in a bounce game against St Johnstone yesterday in a 4-2 win. And so, Craig, I know you've not seen a lot of. No one's seen a lot of him yet. Is he someone that you would like to see in the coming weeks, just because of these attacking issues and just that? I think there's also that element of. Because no one knows too much about, everyone is kind of just really desperate to see what he can bring.
Yeah, it's been discussed before how much better players get when they're not playing. I mean, I wouldn't be against it, because I think we're at the point now where if we just keep doing the same things, and you know, I mean, we need to try and bring in something new to attack. If we can't get the people who are available to start scoring goals, then we need to try something else. And whether that's Musa, whether that's Pollock or Sandilands, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about these people to know how ready they are. Naismith said he's not ready yet. I'd like to know the details of that exactly, because is that physically? Is that just settling in? Is that, you know what I mean? Is he going to be ready this season, or has he got his eye on like next season introducing them or whatever? So yeah, and well, it's easy just to chuck out young players' names, I know. But yeah, if he is showing like he did in the pre-season, in the bounce game, and he's got pace that we kind of lack in attack, I don't think there's going to be any harm in giving him a chance. And on the giving younger players a chance in general, you saw at the Euros that was one of the themes of the tournament, that younger players were given more of a chance, including a 16-year-old who turned 17 for the eventual winners. And then sometimes trends follow on from that. I mean, we haven't seen it at Hearts yet. Be interesting to see as the season progresses across Europe whether there are more young players thrown in and given chances like that. So yeah, who knows? That was kind of a bit of a rabble, but I don't know. Maybe there's something in enthusiasm and fearlessness that could help us, but I feel like I'm grasping at straws right now. And no wonder after 7 games without a win.
That's I mean, that's something that Scott said as well, was like there's no, like, if you brought Pollock on at the weekend instead of Alan Forrest, then people are more likely to get behind him. There's that enthusiasm, a youngster. Graeme says, "Hi guys, I know Musa's a project, but we won't know if he can do a job if he doesn't get any games. Not saying he's the answer, but it's not working with what we're doing now, so why not try him?" It's kind of similar to what you said, Craig. And with Musa, it's it was very much brought in not for the here and now. And I made the point to a couple of guys on social media yesterday that you look at Vargas, and it took Vargas a wee bit of time to find his feet. He played a lot, but it wasn't. He showed a lot of enthusiasm and great attitude. But to have bring that attacking quality, it took a wee bit longer. Calem Nieuwenhof as well. No, I certainly questioned his presence at times in midfield, but then the more game time he got, he kind of grew into it. And I'm kind of just I'm just saying these guys need time, but also interestingly, both Vargas and Nieuwenhof, and like people have said, have been given minutes to kind of work through that and get up to speed. So yeah, I think just the fact that he's pace, he's quick. I think he should be an option off the bench. When you look at it, last Saturday against Dundee United, didn't I really have a forward on the bench? And obviously, I think Naismith will know better than us that whether he's ready or not. But just with the attacking difficulties, that it would be good to just test them out, just bring them on, and it's like, right, not quite sink or swim, but just kind of just test the water and see how he adapts. I mean, the goals yesterday in the bounce game, I know it's only a bounce game, but they should do him the world of good in terms of confidence, because I know, having spoken to Naismith last month when he was talking about Musa, that Musa was like, I think he was quite agitated that he wanted to play. He had that attitude and determination that he wanted to play a lot more. So it's good that he's not there and he's not just come in to settle. But at the same time, he's taken a big jump from the fourth tier of Spain to the top flight in the Premiership. People could say, what about the B team players? But at the same time, B team players like Pollock and Collie Tate, Sandilands and James Wilson, they've been around the first team for a year now. They've understand Scottish football, so there's not quite that adapting period. But yeah, I'm kind of just looking at it from both sides, trying to look at it from both sides. But just as a fan, I understand the enthusiasm to want this guy who's signed in the summer, who's not yet played, when the team are struggling attacking, to see him a lot more.
I don't know if Celtic Park is going to be the venue that we see him either, but I mean, we could see him on the bench for the next few games. He was for Falkirk, is that right?
Yeah, he's been on the bench for Falkirk. He was on the bench against certainly it was I can't remember if he was on both the bench against Pilsen for both games, but certainly the away leg. But John makes a good point here that Musa looked way off in late game. No long-term judgment made, but the interesting part is more the risk is if he's not ready, fans can be awful, especially when we're struggling. So it's a catch-22 situation where
you wouldn't get the same grace period as a player from the academy would get. You know how like a young player from an academy can come on when things are going terribly and make a mistake and still get encouragement from the support, because they kind of realise the situation they're in. I don't know if Musa would get that same sort of grace. He would just be seen as a new sign-in, come from a big team like Sevilla, even if it is like their B team. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how much sympathy he would get for a poor performance, say coming off the bench or whatever.
We both know we're both fans. I'm guilty of it all the time. Even now, is that you see a player once and you write him off. You make a snap judgment and you're like, right, that's we decided. This guy's a murderer. This guy's the best thing in the world. I did that with Gerald Taylor. I went the opposite way. I was thinking, we're going to make millions of him. And as always, it's like it's in between. People need time, etc. But when it comes to supporting a football team, kind of logic and rationale and reasoning, they go out the window, and that's you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
What about? And we'll finish up by discussing. I'll answer the Margaret question in a second. But another good thing is I want to ask you about was Benny Beningame. He played yesterday in the bounce game. I think he got 45 minutes, and he is now fully fit. I think he's going to come back into the first team fold when Celtic comes around. A massive boost. Naismith, speaking to Barry Anderson, said that him and Calem Nieuwenhof being the biggest misses. Do you agree with that? I agree with it with Calem Nieuwenhof. I think he brings something different to the midfield, but I just feel there's not a slight on Benny, because I think he had shown how much of an important player he is. But I thought Boateng's filled in for him quite well, and he once Boateng's came in, you've not really. I don't think you've missed Benny as much.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I know what you mean. Benny hasn't been missed as much as he otherwise would have, because Boateng's been, out of the new signings, his argument, he's been our best one. I do think that there's a space in the team for both of them, though. I watched a fair bit
Yeah.
of Dundee last season, and while I wouldn't go as far as to say that Boateng can play as an 8, he played in the same team alongside Silla, who very much took the number 6 role off him at Dundee. Tended to be in bigger games, I think, where Boateng would play, but he would play slightly further forward of Silla, who was very much the sort of the anchor of that midfield. So I do think that when Benny comes back, there's a place for both of them in the team. I do like the coolness that Benny brings you on the ball and how he's able to break the offensive press, just make it look so simple.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have... I'm kind of hesitant to say we've missed that because I don't think our problem so much has been getting the ball up the pitch. But yeah, I mean, I think we have missed them. Yes, it's not been our biggest issue, but I still think we'll improve when he comes back.
Oh yeah, I absolutely. I just think sorry, I think he just brings a bit of he just brings that composure and calmness, and he's someone where he's one of those players that when you fire the ball, but when you see the ball get fired to him, you can settle, you trust him, you're comfortable with having the ball, even in those moments where he's being pressed, and you think, bloody hell, he's about to lose it, or about his pocket pinched, he always comes out with it, which is a massive quality to have. I think Boateng has been pretty good at that, and just what you're talking about with Silla and Boateng at Dundee, because when we talked about it before, you mentioned, I think you mentioned them when they played against Rangers, so it might not be a surprise come a week on Saturday that they're both lining up against Celtic. And what might be a very, very defensive formation, considering how well Celtic are playing.
But we're okay against teams that attack us.
Yeah, but you look better at it. So yeah,
still don't win the game right enough, but we look better.
Is it that's sort of decided already? We're going to Celtic Park on winning, and then we'll lose Ross County in a couple of
I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly would not be surprised. I know that it doesn't look like we've got it in us, but stranger things have happened than a terrible or an out of form Hearts team going to Celtic Park and winning a game.
I remember driving to. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Were
driving
they out
the game
of form at that point?
Yeah, I remember the driving to the game because it was after. I think it was after the back-to-back defeats to Rangers and Aberdeen, if I remember correctly. And I remember driving at the game, speaking to Pal, and it was just like we're just basically just an hour to get through there, just moaning about the everything that's going on, and then. Suddenly you're walking away having won 2-0, just like wondering what's going on and going on this crazy run. So yeah, it just football's daft.
Yeah, I'm sure we were rubbish when Velička scored a double as well at Celtic Park.
Yeah. Came off the bench. Was there. I've seen our last 4 wins at Celtic Park. Never seen us win at Ibrox, but that's
some going. Can't be many people that have done that.
You better believe we'll be going next Saturday, so hopefully can continue that record. Before we finish up, I'm just Margaret Clark asked what is happening with Atkinson. Nothing's changed. Him and Toby Silk were essentially put up for sale. They were basically free, well, not free to go, but allowed to find a new club. Hearts didn't get the interest that they wanted in Atkinson, and so he remains part of the club. But I don't, as far as I'm aware, he is not part of the first team plans. Because we looked at it last season, and right back was a problem area, and I think everyone agreed it was an area that needed to be upgraded. Signed 2 players in Oyegoke and Taylor. Oyegoke probably more of a centre back, or a centre back in a 3. And Taylor's been up and down to say it nicely. I can understand people going where you've got an Australian international there who could do a job and fill in, but I just think so much water's get under the bridge in that, and don't want to rewrite history and think because everyone was questioning Atkinson. So we need to improve from Atkinson. He had a poor end to the season. He came on against Celtic at Celtic Park, and it turned in he put an apology on Instagram stories, basically for his performance. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. But as far as where he's still available for sale and not part of the first team plans. Again, he wasn't included in the Conference League squad. So that is a status at the moment. So that was a bit of just catching up on everything Hearts at the moment. We'll be back next week. We'll probably do a question and answer session. So we'll I'll put out a tweet and people can get their questions in for next week. And then we'll look ahead to the Celtic game at the end of next week as well, as Hearts come back with back-to-back away games, Celtic St Mirren before home at Ross County, and then it's away to Azerbaijan to play Dinamo Minsk. It's worth noting, as someone put in the chat, that not only are the B team playing tonight, the Hearts women team, but Scotland are playing Spain under 21s at Tynecastle Park as well tonight. I think it's only Lewis Nielsen who is the Hearts player in that squad, if I remember correctly.
Which one's Macaulay Tate in then? Because I looked at the under-19s. They're playing at 4. Neil McFarlane's under-19s,
yes,
and James Wilson's in that squad. So which squad's Macaulay Tate in? Is he not in the under-21s?
He's not been called up.
They're not? All right, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's... so yeah, you can file your complaints to the Scottish FA on that one, or Scott Gemmell.
Probably because he's not getting any game time, any first team game time. Yeah,
and I suppose that'll probably be something that we will talk about next week. I'm sure we'll get a question on that about the youngsters and the need for more game time there. And I think it's interesting that no one's gone out on loan yet, and also with, for example, in Tate's example, Nieuwenhof not in the European squad. Tate will be around, so I don't expect him to go on loan. The hope is that we'll get to see more of these guys get minutes in the first team, but that can be left for next week. Until then, thank you very much, everyone. Be sure to check out the website. We have got an interview with Wanjo, who's back tonight for the Big Hearts Gala, a wee bit about why Hearts are playing in Azerbaijan for the Minsk game. UEFA weren't very helpful at all when I contacted them. There's a deep dive on the Hearts women team and their start to the season. Plus, Craig has looked into all 6 opponents in the Conference League as well and given us the lowdown on that. But until next week, have a nice weekend. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.